We are just a couple of weeks away from a new Premier League season, and that means one thing: it's FPL time. Today, we are going to go through each of our first and current, probably not the last drafts, and we're also at the end going to reveal our AI ratings for each of the sides. Let's kick things off. Jamie, share that screen. Right, talk us through your team. What were you thinking?
Right, so this is obviously my team here. Quickly in goal, I've got West Ham's number 1 and 2. So if one gets injured, the other goes in. And I think Lopetegui is going to be a good defensive sort of manager for West Ham. So I think they'll get more clean sheets this season than they did under Moyes. Gvardiol, Saliba, 6.0. I want the best two defences in the league in my squad, so that's why they're in. Brathwaite, Everton had great defensive stats last season, so I think they'll keep that up under Dyche. Then you got sort of Anderson, Konza, 4.5. They're the ones that could switch around really. Crystal Palace did well at the end of last season, and Villa were good last season, so it's more they're just my 4.5 enablers at the moment. Into the midfield, Salah, I think he is a must-have because of their fixtures in the first sort of 6 game weeks. So I really wouldn't have my squad without Salah. Gordon was brilliant for Newcastle last season, so I think he's great value at 7.5. And then you've got the likes of Nkunku, who, if he's fit, could do well for Chelsea. Hudson-Odoi is a bit of a low, let's go with anything. I don't know who to pick yet, but I think Forest have good games. Winks, I don't really care what he does. If he gets 2 points, he gets 2 points. He'll be on the bench most weeks. The sort of big debate is Haaland. 15 million is an incredible amount, but I've managed to fit him in, and along with Watkins after an incredible season for last year. So yeah, that's my team. What do you two think of it?
I think it looks pretty good, to be fair. I think the key is trying to find a way to get Haaland and Salah in. And I think it's quite a nice spread. I guess the question is, with Liverpool for a 12.5 mil player, can we assume that he's safe from rotation? Because no one knows what team slot's going to play.
I think Salah is, out of all of them, I think Salah's the one least likely to get dropped. I think with the rest of them, the Jotas, the Diaz's, Nunes, Gakpo, we don't have a clue. And I think that was the same under Klopp, really. But I think Salah, if Salah's not starting, he's had a falling out with a new manager. That's kind of the only way I see it, really.
I would agree on that. I think slot, I would argue that, Salah and probably Trent are going to be the guaranteed starters in that side, as well as Alisson. But could I ask, two questions for me. You've gone quite centre-back heavy. I know Gvardiol can play left-back. Is there a reason why you haven't maybe gone for a more, full-back approach where you're going to probably get a bit more assists and attacking output?
So Gvardiol will play left-back. So really, he's probably not in that conversation. For Arsenal, I don't know who's going to be the left-back for them. And Ben White's 0.5 more. And I don't see the justification on Ben White getting as many points as Saliba. So that's where I'm really not sure on that. Crystal Palace, there was Munzo. He's at 5 as well, so he's more expensive. So I could switch to him because I do have 0.5 in the bank. And then Brathwaite, I looked at the stats and he was getting a lot more points and certain to start. So really with my defence, I want them to be getting that clean sheet and to be certain of starting. I don't want to deal with rotation risks. So that's really my reasoning for that.
No, that's fair. I think with how Glasner's going to play at Palace, we're going to expect a very Bundesliga style of play. So maybe Monzo might be a good option if he's going to do that. And also I noticed you've got Ross Stewart, the Loch Ness Drogba, as he's known by Sunderland fans. He's obviously there. Is he just there for the cheap option? Because he only played, I think, 3 games in the Championship last year. He is very... if
he plays, I'll be shocked. That's really it. It's basically, I I needed to play. I basically want my formation to have 2 attackers. My third one, I'm not interested in. Later down the season, I might switch it up to get him a 5.5, like an Armstrong, like a João Pedro if he's starting and not injured. But at the moment, I'm really not interested in him. He'll be my third choice bench option every single week.
Yeah, I think Winks is all right, to be fair, for a 4.5, because you know he's going to play.
Yeah.
He's not going to be a great FPL player, but obviously for a 4.5 midfielder, you're not really too concerned.
Really, Winks comes in if someone's dropped for an unknown reason. Really, that's kind of it. And then if he gets me more than 2 points, then it's like happy days.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough.
Move on to Jordan's team now. Jordan, on to you.
Yeah, so I've provisionally gone for a sort of similar approach, and my question was: is there a way that I can get Haaland and Salah in the same team? So pretty much my team is centered around that. Keepers wise at the minute, I'll be honest, keepers I'm really not decided on. At the minute, I've just put Sanchez in because there's rumours going around that he's going to be our starting keeper. That's literally the only reason at the moment. Turner, obviously, for 4 mil as well. 4 mil keepers, you're not really going to get much value out of a 4 mil keeper anyway. So at the minute, these are very interchangeable. Defence-wise, again, I don't feel fully set on these, I've got to be honest. But all of these pretty much are going to be consistent starters. I think for me, the Villa choice makes sense. And Mykolenko, some of his stats towards the end of the season in terms of shots was pretty good. So I like the fact that he's getting forward. Same with Porro. I mean, although you can argue his shooting stats were not the best, i.e. it took him the most number of shots to score a goal. The point is he gets forward and he does get in shooting positions. So I tried to go, I think that's probably where our teams differ, Jamie. Our defence, you've gone more centre-back heavy. I've gone a bit more with at least Porro, Mykolenko and Ait-Nouri, a little bit more attacking. And again, you probably remember Ait-Nouri at the end of the season. He was basically playing as a left winger at times. So I think for 4.5 mil, he could be very, very good value. In terms of midfield, again, similar approach. I still am very happy with this midfield. Obviously, Salah's in there. Foden's in there. Hoping he has. The question mark will be, can he do it again? Can he do what he did last season again? Eza needs no introduction. I think we saw how good Palace were at the end of last season under Glasner. Obviously, Elise is now out, so that takes a lot of their attacking threat away. So even more of Palace's attack now will be coming through Eza. So I'm pretty confident with him. And Cuckoo's the one where I'm like, I just don't know. But if he is playing as the striker at Chelsea for 6.5 mil as a midfielder, absolute banker. And then, yeah, Moda's obviously a 4.5 mil option. Haaland and Watkins, the boys up front. And then, yeah, O'Mahony as a 4.5 miller.
One thing I think is quite interesting is, well, I was quite surprised when you sent me the draft, was no Palmer. You've been banging on about him all summer, all before that, and you've not put him in your team. Is there any reason?
Well, look, what I will say is, first and foremost, although Haaland's getting all the plaudits for being 15 mil, I believe Palmer was the single biggest FPL price rise in history. And he cost more more than Foden. You can read what you want into that. I'll be honest, if I change my team, Palmer will be in it. At the minute, 10.5 suddenly becomes an issue. And it's just such a ridiculous price rise. It's almost gone too far potentially. And the reality is, if Nkunku starts, and again this is very open to change in the first few weeks, if Nkunku starts up top potentially, based on what I saw in cameos last season, his output is going to be ridiculous. And at the minute, I'm looking at it going, can I justify 4 mil? Basically, the difference I'm looking at is between Nkunku and Palmer. and I'm going, that 4 mil is so much. So to get Palmer in this team, I'd have to basically substitute out Salah, who's been one of the biggest FPL bankers in the last however many years, or potentially take Foden out, and then I've got to find a mil from somewhere. So I'm not. Palmer may end up being in my team, but at the minute it's hard to justify because the price rise has been, as we said, the highest in history.
No, that's a fair point. I think Nkunku is impressive when he plays. I think he scored, was it 3 goals last season, only 11 appearances. It's if he stays fit is the big issue. I expect Cole Palmer's numbers to drop off next season because Maresca will play a different style of play to what Poch does. So we'll expect a more over-round contribution from the team. So you could argue that Nkunku is a smart bit of business if he stays fit. Like I said, Palmer might still get you 10 goals, but he might not get you. Do you know what I mean? It's weighing that out. Whereas Foden, especially if De Bruyne is going to go, is going to be more central to Man City. I do think, however, you could look at replacement for Nkunku with Gibbs White. I know they're roughly the same price, but I think Gibbs White can match Nkunku's output. I mean, he got, what was it? I think it was 10 assists last season and 5 goals. Yes, he scored less than Nkunku, which is what obviously the goals matter, but he could match the output of anybody if we're looking for a bit more of a outsider who's going to play every game as well. Let's not forget.
Yeah, I don't love Gibbs White in terms of output, but I agree with you in terms of saying he's basically guaranteed to start, in my opinion. Whereas in Nkunku, there is some question marks over how we'll line up. We've obviously got, as every team has, quite a few games in pre-season. So to be honest, Nkunku's one I'm very much. I'll be watching every pre-season game with my eyes on him. And I guess other FPL fans will be, but if he starts banging goals in pre-season, I think he'll be in everyone's team, to be completely honest. But yeah, he's probably most open to change at the minute in midfield. And just on the Palmer / Foden point, I think overall Palmer's output will be similar to last season, but what I think there'll be more assists, and I do actually think some of those goals will be taken from Nkunku. And as for Foden, I see him and Palmer getting similar numbers, total goals and assist wise. But Foden at the minute is a mil cheaper, so that's kind of where I'm at the minute.
I think with the Gibbs White sort of comment is, you got to remember he has penalties, which Nkunku won't, and Palmer will, because there's no reason to take Palmer off penalties when you score all of your penalties, and you had quite a few. So I do agree with Reece that Palmer's numbers will go down because I don't expect you to get that as many penalties as last year. So I think you had a lot of penalties compared to sort of like the average. So that's where he may drop, but he'd still be very important to Chelsea. So I can see why there was that big price rise. Just one more point on your team, Jordan, is you've currently got no Arsenal players, and they were best defence last season and second best attack. So to have none, it's quite bold. Are you preying on the downfall of Arsenal?
Yes, we will be there. No, I agree. To be honest, that's a concern. I did have Saka, obviously not defensively, but I had Saka in one of my drafts. What I'd probably be looking to do, if I change my mind, is Porro out, Saliba in, and then I'm going to have to drop one of the 3 centre backs in the middle. Sorry, not centre backs. The 3 backs in the centre of the page to a 4 mil, which will be tricky.
Quite risky. Have 2 4.0 defenders.
Yeah, that is a bit of a concern. To be honest, I think if I want an Arsenal player in, I'll have to drop my current keep Haaland and Salah in strategy. So I'm not sure that will outweigh it personally. But,
an option for you is dropping Watkins down to Isak, and that gives you that 0.5 to go up to Saliba.
Yeah,
that's the only small change of it. Not ripping up your draft, but a small tweak
thing
here and
is,
there.
the concern with Isak is the rotation, because you've got Wilson in the mix as well, and then Isak can play for 60 minutes and get subbed off, which I don't love. So I don't know. I know I see a lot of Isak in a lot of people's drafts, but I'm not fully sold on him at the minute.
Fair enough. And then finally, let's get on to Reece's team. Reece, talk us through it.
Yeah, I think pretty self-explanatory. I think, like I said, Sanchez in goal, it looks like he's going to be the number one for Chelsea in the short term anyway. So I've put him in, but I do expect to probably change that, just looking at more how I expect teams to shape throughout the season. But with their first game against Man City, the chances are you might get a 0-0 out of that. So I factored that in. At the back, I've gone very
Sorry, Reece, but you've got to remember it was 4-4 last time at Stamford Bridge.
You don't get that in the first game of the season, do you?
It's just a bit of a difference, possibly. But yeah, fair enough.
If that game's in October, November, absolutely would change it. But first game, completely different. I've gone very wing back heavy, with the exception of Murillo, in my defence, just because I think if you get a clean sheet, they keep the clean sheet, but they're also going to contribute with assists. I do think someone like Anderson is a good shout because he knows how to head a ball. I think he got 3 goals last season, so he's going to get you that. But if he stays fit, I think Luke Shaw's been more than impressive. I think he'll contribute well. Alexander-Arnold, I think, will be critical for slot. But I do think Liverpool are going to probably concede more goals next season. And Mykolenko, like what Jordan mentioned earlier, and as well, Murillo in a very defensive structure at Forest is probably going to be a safe bet. And my other sort of left field shout was Anthony Robinson. I think he's had a great season. He had a great season for Fulham, and I expect him to keep that. However, in the first game away at Old Trafford, I would probably keep him on the bench, just in case. I've stocked up definitely in midfield in terms of attacking, because I think this is probably one of the first times where, yes, Haaland is going to score goals, but I think it's the first time in the league where you can see that there's a lot of strikers who are going to score. So I think you can outweigh that with the attacking output in midfield. So I have gone for Cole Palmer, just to see how he fares early on. Eze, I think, as we can see under the Glasner effect, how outstanding they've been. I think he'll be critical to that, especially now that Elise is not there. Salah is a no-brainer as well early on. And I've gone for Odegaard, who got 10 assists last season. I think Arsenal's start isn't great, so I don't blame you, Jordan, for not putting in an Arsenal player at this moment in time. I've stuck him in here just to see how he gets on early on. But remember, he was a bit of a late bloomer last year. So that is something to bear in mind. And then I went for Brentford Yarmulke, just 1, for the money, and 2, he will probably play some games. Up front, as you can see, I'm Haalandless because I have gone for Isak, because we can't knock the fact that when he's fit, he scores goals. He got 21 in 30 in the league last season, which is absolutely ridiculous. And the guy scores goals against any team, and he will get hat-tricks as well. So I've kept that in mind. And a first game against Southampton, a team that I think who are going to take a couple of games to adjust, will concede goals. So this might be Isaac's time to have a go at that. Obviously, it's now going to be 0-0. But just keeping that in mind, I think Russell Martin's side will be prone to conceding, just like I think McKenna's Ipswich will be. So and I've also gone for Watkins. I think he had a good season, brilliant season. I think he might continue that. And also went for Adam Armstrong at Southampton. Yes, he might not he might not score away to Newcastle, but I think he may have disappointed in the Premier League, but I think this is his time to shine. I think Martin will get the best out of him. But like I said, I think the Southamptons, the Ipswiches, you're going to get a lot of 4-3s with these teams. So you need to be careful on how you're going to pick or where you're going to pick them. And I think Armstrong is going to be better off playing against the Ipswich or maybe Palace at home or something like that, where I think I'll factor him in.
Yeah, I quite like. It's noticeable straight away when you take out Haaland how much money you've got, because you then still get a good striker combo. You get a playing striker in Armstrong, and you get Trent at the back as well. So it does really, and you still get Palmer and Odegaard. So it is. I think this is the difficulty with Haaland and the real debate. It's now if you've got him in your team, he has to contribute every game now for 15 mil basically. And the question is, will he? Can he continue to operate at that level?
I mean, yes, he can. He's the top scorer in the league or whatever for a reason. People can call it a bad season, but if you're getting 30 goals in a bad season, you know full well what you're going to get in a good season.
Well, his bad season, the stats had him in a goal involvement over one a game. It was something like 1.2 a game, and that's meant to be a bad season for someone.
So it's
exactly. It's a good season.
Exactly.
15 mil seems a bargain.
Exactly, it's ridiculous. So having Haaland in is a genuinely smart move, regardless. I just attributed this around of you know what? While I can see that you've gone for the player who's never going to play up front, I thought, you know what? Why don't I add in an extra player? Because if Isaac gets me 15 goals, Watkin gets me 15, but Armstrong only gets me 5, I've made up for it. If that makes sense, that's my thinking behind it. I've got someone who, yes, he will play every game anyway for Southampton, I'm sure, unless they buy another striker. It's just giving that banker in while, just to make up for the fact I haven't got Haaland there. I expect Eze to score goals. I expect Salah to score goals. I expect Alexander Arnold and Shaw to contribute more. So I've factored that in just to compensate that loss of Haaland, to be honest.
The one thing with taking out a no Haaland squad, obviously you can see your midfield is probably stronger than mine and Jordan's with Haaland, or your defence, sort of like you get that extra money for it. However, what I've seen with other people's, which you don't have, is you've got no City at all. So City's second game is at home to Ipswich. Now you're saying Ipswich might concede goals. If City go and win 5-0, you could be looking at quite a bad sort of points, like rank drop kind of thing. So are you concerned about no City at all, or have you got plans for it after the first game week because we're away at Chelsea?
Yeah, I mean, because this isn't my first draft, I do think I'll make changes. I do think I'll probably be looking at bringing Foden in for Palmer in those first couple of games. I think the issue I've got with City is they do concede goals. They don't concede 2 or 3 in a game, but their lack of clean sheets, especially, if we swore, was alarming. If you're going to be champions, you've got to not concede goals. But as we saw, Arsenal didn't concede them and they didn't win. So that doesn't matter so much. But I get a bit of concern with that. I think I should attribute a City defender in, a midfielder in, and that will likely be Foden, but I still think those issues of Pep Roulette come into it, where we put him in and then he's dropped and doesn't play, and you think I've wasted a pick, But with the strength in my midfield, if Foden wasn't going to play, I've made up for it, in my opinion. So I will probably put them in. And that was my glaring omission when I did this, but I just need to think where I think would be best to consider somebody.
Yeah, I think the only other thing in terms of defenders not keeping clean sheets, I think Shaw could be a risk, although we know he goes forward and everything else like that. United's stats last season, and again, Ten Hag's still there. In terms of shots faced and XG against, their stats are absolutely terrible. So I think you are with Shaw. I appreciate he's only 5 minutes, not like he's a 6 mil defender, but I think there's a risk there of rarely getting any clean sheet points for sure. So you're kind of relying on him making assists. And I don't think he's going to get a goal.
I think you've got to look at United had, I think, the second or third highest clean sheets last season. So that's the only sort of. I agree with what you're saying with the actual shots faced. They were 19th, 20th in the league, but they seem to keep clean sheets despite conceding a lot of shots. So maybe it's
And this is it. I think United are a bit of an enigma at the moment because we expect better next season, and if they avoid the injuries like they have, they will play better. Like, let's bear in mind they did have to have a very sellotape together defense for quite a lot of the season, whether it was Evans, Maguire, whatever. They've now reinvested that money. Yoro's just come in, who I think is an outstanding player, or can be an outstanding player. So he could be a safe bet. Will he score goals? I don't think so. I think that's why their wing backs are going to be more important if they're fit. If not, maybe a Man United midfielder might make sense. However, with rumours that McTominay could be sold, it's going to have to be Fernandes probably, to stick in there. But
all right. So should we get onto the AI's opinion?
Okay. Well, I've obviously seen the results. You two haven't yet.
I hope you have a high score, or there'll be questions.
We'll see now. So we have Reece's on page, so we might as well see Reece's first. And Reece has got a very, very good 89 out of 100.
Good effort.
Solid score. We'll go into Jordan's next, who goes down the list into 83 out of 100.
Savage.
And then for mine, I've only got 86.
Oh.
So it seems the AI is preferring a non-Haaland draft.
That is interesting.
So
look, I'm clearly the brains of football here, so it's no real shock. But
talk about your recent FPL years, shall we?
Well, that's what happens when you leave it for 2 weeks. That's it. The AI knows nothing. I come last out of us three. So I can't really take that judgment. At
the moment, it's a strong start. You've got no City in, and the AI doesn't care.
That's it. AI does not care about City. Is clearly the tagline. That is a surprise. I'm not sure what they factor in here. I'm not sure, but that is interesting.
It could be a 1 week situation.
No. It's a whole. It's meant to be for a whole team. It's not just one game week situation.
Okay.
But I think we have to give a small shout out to Fantasy Football Hub. They're the ones who have the AI tool. We're not taking credit for this in any way, and we're not sponsored, but we'd love to be if you'd like to. Fantasy Football Hub. Just send us a message. We'll reply. Don't worry.
No chance after they give me a rating of 83. Absolutely not. Cool. Well, look, that's all. Just about how much we have time for. And as always, send us your drafts in the comment section. We're on Instagram as well, so we do want to hear from you. And as I said, all our teams will probably change before the actual kickoff to the season. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.